Good day everyone. I am Pranjali and I will be discussing the C1-type bungalow of Jamshedpur. When the construction of the Tata Iron and Steel Company commenced in 1908, workers and skilled labourers started migrating to Jamshedpur from different parts of the country like Bombay, Calcutta, Kharagpur, Asanol for employment opportunities as well as facilities like housing, transportation, food, water supply, medical relief and recreation. As the plant grew, forests were cleared to build huts and tenement houses to accommodate growing numbers. By as early as 1909, construction of quarters and bungalows started. By 1919, Jamshedpur was roughly divided in four sectors: Northern Town, Southern Town, Eastern Town, and Coolie Town. Julian Kennedy planned the Northern Town for the highest paid employees, followed by the Southern Town. The first program involved building of 7 bungalows for superior officials to the north of the plant. Owing to the topography and prevailing wind patterns of Jamshedpur, the northern town is situated on a higher ground in a location where dust and smoke from the plant is prevented for at least 9 months of the year. This made the northern town a suitable location for residences. From the maps of Jamshedpur and demographics from the Census of India, the northern town was a part of the first phase of development, which is between 1909 and 1919. Roads were laid in a grid layout with alphabetical order in the northern town. The residences in this part of the town had a higher rent, prestige, and status attached to it. The proposal of the building of bungalows dictated that not more than 12 bungalows would be constructed in an acre. Saying this, the northern town has the largest blocks of single-storied buildings in Jamshedpur. Being well connected with open and public spaces in Jamshedpur like golf courses, parks, clubs, stadia, military parade ground and rifle range, the northern town residents had recreational facilities very close to their residences. The structure I chose to study is a bungalow on the B road of the northern town. The bungalow stands out in the locality for being the only double-story structure in a sea of single-storied residences. Due to the absence of a direct contextual data for the building, I tried to plot the bungalow on various maps of the demographics of Jamshedpur. From this exercise, it could be conjectured that the bungalow was constructed in the first phase of Jamshedpur, along with other bungalow typologies being constructed before 1920, as evident from the archival photographs. The bungalow follows the C1 type of layout of several typical building plans proposed by TISCO to be built as living quarters for higher paid officials. The general idea was to bring a sense of united aesthetic to the town. The C1 type bungalow that typically accommodates a single story has been modified in this case into a double-storied structure which functioned as a ballroom on the first floor according to the current resident of the bungalow. The plausible implication of this social involvement and status of the bungalow's formermost residents on the bungalow has been discussed through three details. Captain C.G. Kalpin proposed that the bungalows must be built with cavity walls to insulate buildings against Jamshedpur's heat and dampness in the monsoon. Whether the proposal materialized in other residences or not could be a question of speculation, but in the C1 type bungalow, the cavity wall is evident from the facade of the building. The central part of the bungalow above the front porch has curious squares. Similar square openings on the terrace indicate that these are vents. It provides evidence that a ventilated cavity wall system has been used, a feature that is unique to this residence and not observed elsewhere in Jamshedpur. Ventilated cavity walls promote drying of the walls as moisture dissipates to the exterior through the vents. This system of cavity walls is also more resilient against wet climate as it prevents cracking or staining. In a humid subtropical region like Jamshedpur, a ventilated cavity wall optimizes comfort of interior spaces. To buttress speculations, I relied on standard practices to decipher the making of the cavity wall. In the possibility that is explored in this study, the inner leaf of the cavity wall ties with the outer leaf at the sill and lintel level for structural stability, creating three segments of cavity walls. While studying and recreating this section in drawing, when the relatively central brick in the vertical courses was removed to provide for an air gap, the air vents apparently became equidistant. This revelation indicates towards the ease of instruction during the construction of the cavity wall on site. It might be a fairly logical instruction to give a brick mason to remove the middlemost brick in a vertical segment of the cavity wall. What is intriguing about this wall is that the vents only appear on the walls of the one room on the first floor, whereas the rest of the walls appear thinner, following the basic principles of load-bearing structures. The absence of air vents on the other walls as well as the thickness of the walls indicate towards an absence of cavity walls in the residence except for the former ballroom. A cavity wall could also be built to reduce load as well as building cost, but from this bungalow it is evident that the construction practice transcended economic reasons and a choice was made to specifically maximize comfort by providing insulation in the room which was most likely used to entertain guests. Decoding the construction of the staircase has been quite an interesting task in the entire exercise. It posed several possibilities as to what, how, and when it was built. The primary source of information lies in the photographs of the bungalow and the first-hand account of the current residents. From the photographs, it is evident that the first flight of stairs has been packed with solid brick masonry. The next flight of steps is supported on what appears to be a girder that is packed, plastered, and painted over. The girder possibly rests on the stone padstone at the top of the masonry wall. If we hinge our discussion on the possibility that the staircase was built along with the rest of the building, it is less likely that there has been a use of reinforced concrete in the construction. Since brick was the most easily available material, with labourers knowing the technical know-how of reinforced brick slab construction, it is likely that the base slab was constructed using this system. To check the possibility of sloping a reinforced brick slab in this manner, I checked the angle of repose of brick, which is 40 degree. Since the angle of the staircase is around 30 degree, it allows the stability of construction, followed by standard brick steps to be laid. In an absence of any evidence from the site, this largely remains a speculation. The staircase is finished with Indian pattern stone or IPS. When laying the 50 mm layer of IPS, it enables a smooth finish to be achieved. From the photograph, a continuity of surface is observed between the steps, wall, and the wooden balustrades. While such an even finish is observed over the staircase, it is curious to notice that a specimen of lousy workmanship in the risers. This raises several questions about the making of the staircase. The placement of these wooden pegs indicate towards an attachment of stair rods and runners over the staircase. The possibility of a carpeted staircase elevates the bungalow's importance. In a time where only two other buildings were double-storied in Jamshedpur, the phenomenon of a staircase is in itself a big deal. The workmanship of the chaotically finished wooden pegs flags up the possibility that when the carpet and stair rods were removed after the residence changed, not much attention was paid to finish the surface where possibly holes were left after the dismantling. It is possible that the wooden pegs were inserted to close the gaps and the surface along with the balustrades were painted over later. As the usage of the room changed over the years, as presently the former ballroom is now a bedroom, the attention to detail was diminished as the floor above no longer played a role to entertain guests was planned when the building was originally built. The final detail that caught my attention in the building was the boarded up fireplace. The only evidence that the fireplace ever existed as a part of the bungalow was the chimney stacks jutting out of the central portion of the house. The chimney forms a part of the dining area. Since the fireplace was closed later, most of the drawing is corroborated from several standard drawings and the position of the chimney stacks. The chimney in question shares its main stem with another chimney on the floor above, and the two rooms are not one above the other. The design of the chimney largely remains a speculation, but I have tried to make sense of the logic of building a chimney. The weather of Jamshedpur would fall as low as 3 degrees Celsius in the coldest months of December and January. To ensure comfort and in residences, fireplaces were proposed. This was likely to be a common practice as fireplaces were observed in most bungalows that were studied during the module. It was observed that these fireplaces are presently closed off, probably as the rising temperature renders it quite redundant. In the C1-type bungalow, the chimney catered to the parts of the house that are public or semi-public in nature. While the chimney on the ground floor served the dining room, on the first floor the chimney opened into the ballroom. This room has another boarded chimney stack, which is curious as to why a room would require two chimneys. From looking at the layout of the bungalow, great importance was placed on the symmetrical order of planning. To maintain some symmetry on the facade, it is possible that there are two chimneys. The relevance and functioning of the other chimney still remains questionable. After analyzing the building, the three elements connect to the presence of a unique room in the bungalow, the ballroom. The typological plan of a C1-type bungalow does not hint towards the construction of an upper floor, much less a space for social gathering. Yet, when this bungalow was built, it is likely that powerful people from Tisco were involved in the construction of such a residence. This building becomes one of the three buildings in Jamshedpur with two stories built before 1920, the other two being the DAV school and the KMPM school. Unlike the KMPM school, whose upper floor was accessed for administrative purposes, the bungalow's first story was open to public gathering, which validated the side entrance beside the staircase leading to the top floor. This entrance essentially separated the ballroom from the rest of the house. The carpeted staircase bears testimony to the very public nature of this space, a chance to show off the social standing of the former residents. The ballroom was equipped to provide maximum comfort to the visitors as soon as they entered the staircase lobby. The staircase was likely built in a more aesthetic form with the use of IPS than the girder and cast staircase of KMPM and DAV's wooden staircase, which was a much more common practice during the time. The cavity wall and the fireplace ensured thermal comfort throughout the year, effectively designed to cater to all seasons. Looking at the overall structure of the bungalow, several additions and alterations have been made with little care as to the existing order of the building. Upon reflection, these newer additions have affected the aesthetic created by the careful planning of the original structure. The complexity of construction of the cavity wall, reinforced brick staircase and fireplace, along with the fact that it was the only double-storied residence of the time in northern town, raises the symbolic value of the structure in 1920. However, how the alterations affect the perception of the building today becomes another question of analysis. Thank you.